In this tutorial, I'll show you how to create this 99% procedural kinetic type loop. Hi, I'm Animator. This is the Video Shop long play. I saw this animation in a post recently in the motion design subreddit and thought I'd try to recreate it procedurally in After Effects. I almost succeeded. There's just one tiny minuscule part that I couldn't make fully procedural. We'll get to that later. This is an extended version of this tutorial on my main channel. Please watch that if you just want the quick step-by-step. In this video, I'll also try to explain how all the expressions work, and also suggest how you might explore the techniques used here beyond just this animation. Okay, let's get started. I've got an HD comp, 10 seconds duration, frame rate is 30 frames a second, and make sure your expressions engine is set to JavaScript in project settings. Create a new text layer with these settings. I'm using Arial monospaced MT regular, and just make sure your type is left justified. I'm going to move this over to the left and set it to be 150 on the X. So we're going to animate the tracking. So I'm going to go into here and animate tracking. Rename it if you're anal like me. I'm going to set the tracking to be 27. That's right, not 25 and not 30, 27. In advanced, set the mode to be subtract, the smoothness to be 0. And then we'll set a keyframe on the end value, and then we'll go to 1 second and then set that to be 0. So if we preview that, so select that text animator group and duplicate it. Then on the duplicate, press U, and we'll shift these keyframes along. So at the end here, this is why the tracking set to 27. Next, we want the letters to shimmy along to the right, but we want the S to stay in place, so the letters are coming in from the left-hand side. But our text is left justified, so this is tricky. What we're going to do is go into the source text, set a keyframe at the start, then at 2 seconds, set the type to be right justified. The text is going to jump over to here, but what we're going to do is press A for anchor point, and use this expression here. Just bear in mind, YouTube doesn't allow standard greater than or less than signs in video descriptions. To get around this, I've used full width versions, which look slightly different. So you'll get an error message, and then just what you need to do is replace that, and finally okay, so you can see that the text is corrected. So this line is looking at the source text. T equals time, but we're about to override that. This part of the expression is looking for keyframes on the source text. So nearest key finds the closest source text keyframe. Then here, if that nearest keyframe is in the future, we'll step back 1 frame. Then this sets T equals time to be the time of that keyframe. This line returns an object with left, top, width and height based on the text bounds at that time. And here, for text layers, left and top are the offsets in layer space from the current anchor point to the top left of the text box at that frozen time. And then here we output a 2D vector. On the anchor point, this sets the anchor point to the text box top left. If your text is jumping the wrong way, flip this sign value to be -1. You might find that happening if you've got parenting in your composition, for example. So now we've done that, we'll go to 3 seconds and copy and paste this keyframe on tracking 02. Set a keyframe on this value, which is tracking 01. Go to 4 seconds and then copy and paste that first keyframe. So that gives us this. So our text is shimmied over to here. Then at 5 seconds, we're going to copy and paste this keyframe. And then also copy and paste all of the tracking 02 keyframes. Then at 6 seconds, we don't want this to happen. So we'll copy and paste the first source text keyframe, and then instead it's going to shimmy back from the right. Then finally at 7 seconds, we're going to copy and paste these 2 keyframes from tracking 01. And that brings us back to the start. And if we just set timeline markers, just have a look at that. So that's a perfect loop over to the right and then back again. Next we'll precompose our layer. Doesn't matter what we call this. But I'm going to enter and rename it text 01. This comma 01 part is important because we're going to need that value for the expressions that we're going to set next. This is optional, but I'm going to go into that text precomp and then just set the height of the composition to be 100. And then just center it. Next we'll create a new null and call it control. And we're going to pop a slider on there, duplicate it, and then the first one we'll call that Y, and then the second one time bracket frames. We don't need to see it. Now on the position of our text layer, we're going to set this expression. This is in the video description if you want to copy and paste it. So the end value is the 01 in this case, but we're going to duplicate this a bunch of times. And then the Y step is the value that we're going to input on that slider, and it's going to distribute the layers on the Y axis. We've got a 2D layer. If you use this on a 3D layer, you just need to adjust this last line to allow for that extra Z value. And next we'll enable time remapping, and we're going to use this expression here. So similarly, the first line is referencing the 01 value on our layer and subsequent layers. And then we've got our offset frames. So this is going to offset in time, whatever value we put in frames. We've got a loop duration here, and I've set this to be 240 because that's 8 seconds at 30 frames a second. If you use this rig to do your own animations and you have a different loop duration, just adjust this value, and you can always create a slider control for it on your control null here. So all of our duplicate layers will loop in time based on that loop duration frames, and we won't have to stagger them manually, which is a faff. So between those two expressions, we can now easily duplicate the text animation and distribute them along the Y-axis and also in time. So now we move our text up. And then I'm going to duplicate it a whole bunch of times. So I've got 25 copies, and then we can stagger it on the Y-axis. And then if we adjust this value, that's going to be staggering it based on frames. So I'm going to give a value of 60 on the Y and maybe 5. And what we can also do is zoom out, grab our layers, move them up, and we can either create a new null or even parent them to our control null and scale that down. So anyway, our loop point is 8 seconds. So if I preview that, and that's it. Nearly fully procedural, apart from having to keyframe the source text. If you know a better method of switching the justification without having to do that, let me know. I'm still not sure how the original was done. It's great, so if you know who did it, please let me know. Looking at it again more closely, it's got duplications, which are actually kind of nice. My guess is that it was done in Cavalry. Anyway, now that you've got this rig, you can easily adapt it for your own animations. This is an old Kinetic type loop that I did a little while ago. I had to manually stagger these layers. But to do something similar now, you could just use the loop stagger expression with control slider. If you want to explore the layer.name.split code that we used on the position and time remapping, I've done a whole video on how creative you can get with it. This animation uses a lot of the same time-saving techniques that we've already looked at, but with a different aesthetic. You could simply expand this rig though. Try using ChatGPT to help expand on some of the expressions. In this case, I'm creating additional sliders for the X and Z position. Then maybe try inputting the final animation into a new rig and seeing how it looks when you stagger the animation in Z space, and then offset the time. Doesn't necessarily need to be 3D. You can adjust the opacity and mess around with layer styles. Just see what looks interesting. We haven't even started adding effects yet. If that seems like too much hassle, you could always try variations using the rig as it is. Here I've removed the text animators, and I've got a new position text animator sliding the letters left and right. If you're not confident with text animators, I've got loads of tutorials on my main channel. If you don't know where to start, this one outlines the basics. Anyway, I hope this was useful. If you create anything yourself using this setup, do let me know. Thanks for watching, see you again soon.